Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy. This is the Boker Nano, and I want to thank my buddies Frankie and Bud for sending this little guy along. It's a very interesting little knife, and I tend to like small knives, so it's always nice to see something else. Let's do a little size comparison here. This right here is your Spyderco Delica. This is your Spyderco Dragonfly, which is kind of my token very small knife, and you can see that blade length-wise, these are right around in the same vicinity. Right here is the Ontario Rat number 1. I'm sorry, that's the Rat 2. Here's the Rat 1. So this is a tiny, tiny little knife. And then, another relatively small, subtle sort of knife. Your Medford Marauder. This guy is a little bit smaller. So there you go. And then finally, I want to highlight this is a Curtis design. Curtis design. Curtis is a well-known knife maker, and this kind of clip is his signature and whatnot. So that may be of interest to some people, but it is made by Boker here. So let's go on ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this particular very weird little knife. So on the good side, first off, the materials on this guy aren't bad at all. You've got stainless steel here. You've got what looks to be, I'm not sure if it's a plastic or a G10. I think it is just a plastic here, but it's on top of a steel liner. And then the blade itself is made of 440C steel, which if it's heat treated right can be fine for everyday carry. And so that's nice. It's very easy to use terrible materials on here, but this seems to be pretty well made in that way. That's good. Next thing, the angle on this guy is nice. What I mean by that is that oftentimes on a small knife, like the Spyderco Dragonfly here, your hand sticks out way far, much further down on the kind of on this axis than the blade itself. So if you're trying to cut down onto something, you have relatively little, room for the blade to contact. This guy has a different ergonomic take that really removes a lot of your hand is kind of up in this little groove here. And so it's actually pretty straightforward as you're cutting with this guy to get the entire blade down onto a surface. So if you're chopping up cilantro, this is a pretty decent approach. I don't know why I went to cilantro, but it kind of works out, doesn't it? So I like very much that little part of the ergonomic design. It does make this a lot easier to cut straight down onto something with this guy. Next thing is the clip on this. This is very much a Curtis clip. I mean, you can see it. It looks just like the ones he uses on a lot of his mid-tech, custom, whatever you want to call them, knives. Nice. And it also mounts tip down or tip up, as it is in this case. You can see there's a second set of holes. No holes on the other side. Sorry, lefties. So that's good. The swedge on the blade is kind of nice. It adds a little bit of visual interest and also thins things a little bit. This is still not a stabbing knife by any stretch of the imagination, but it is still nice to not have the entire thickness of the blade right above the tip here. And then finally, the plastic pattern here is kind of nice. I think it's a whatever it is, it's kind of a nice pattern because it gives you a little bit of extra grip and texture. It could be very easy for this to be a super slippery knife with it being mostly steel on the back here. If they'd done the same thing on the front, this would be in and out of your hand, but I feel like this pattern actually does a pretty good job of making this very easily holdable. And it's got some hot spots, but hey, it gives you good traction. So that's a nice thing. And that's the good overall, is that I like this little pattern on the plastic here. The swedge is a nice little touch. The Curtis clip, again, it's a little bit of effort. They could have gone something vanilla there. The angle that your hand sits at while you're cutting is nice, and that the materials overall aren't actually so bad. Let's talk about what's great about this knife. So the great thing here is that it feels like a pretty solid knife overall. And the reason I say that is it's a frame lock sort of knife, and it's got a solid 50% lockup going on here. But also, it's got a nested steel liner here. This plastic is actually wrapped around the piece of steel here. So there is a great deal of stiffness. It's not just a knife that is half plastic. And that's good. And just overall, when this guy is locked open, it feels very much locked open. This has a security in the hand that, from this short stubby lock bar with good tension, it's kind of hard to overstate. And so even though it's a tiny little thing, it is very, very secure. So to me, that's what's great about this knife. Let's talk about what's bad. Okay, so on the bad side, first off, two issues of taste. I'm not a huge fan of the Curtis clip, personally, because, well, this is a small, subtle little knife that a lot of people would consider to be great for situations where people would be scared of knives. And putting a big old crosshairs on the side of it doesn't quite do it. In fact, the entire presentation of this knife is very tacticool. They've kind of made this otherwise relatively interesting little knife into a high-speed, low-drag queen here. They've done a painted blade, the olive brown, not olive brown, coyote brown scale. I just don't get why this isn't metal and some other color here. Who knows, whatever. But that's just my opinion. Next thing here, they did screw up the sharpening choil. You can see here that this little portion is designed to let them sharpen at the very end, but the thing is, the plunge grind extends past that, and so there is an area here that is just not sharpened. You could probably sharpen that out, but it's always going to be at a different angle here, and so you're always going to have a little bit of a smile there. It's not well done in that way. They really should have done the sharpening choil better than that. That's just lazy. Next thing is that this guy is pretty wide in the pocket, so we'll compare it, if it's just hanging down into your pocket like this, at the very top of your pocket where things are obstructed most, if we compare this in width to the Spyderco Dragonfly, you can see this has a whole lot more chub sticking out here. Out of the Spyderco Delica. This is not a very small knife in any way, shape, or form. In fact, this knife is slightly wider than the Medford Praetorian. I'm sorry, this is the Medford Marauder here. That's a little ridiculous. So, yeah, I don't know why this needs to be as wide as it is. Next thing is that this is kind of weirdly heavy. This looks like a very small and subtle knife, but because it's a steel frame lock and it's got an interior steel liner, this guy comes in at 2.9 ounces. Don't get me wrong, 2.9 ounces is not a crazy weight, but this just feels super dense relative to the size that you get. A little strange. Next thing here, the thumb opening doesn't work so well, because in order to grab it, you kind of need to be holding it like this, and when you're holding it like this, you're putting pressure onto the lock bar, and that's just ugly, and so you can pop it open, but that lock bar pressure is constantly fighting to keep you from popping it open, and so I don't like opening this guy one-handed. This thumb hole is just not stellar. I kind of wish that they'd done a thumb stud or something instead. You can do it, I just don't love it. And then finally, the price seems a little high to me. You're looking at $50 here, and I guess it's okay. It's a big-name designer. It's 440C. It's full steel liners, but I don't know. The price doesn't ring value to me in any way, shape, or form, especially given Boker's quality control. So, there you go. That's the bad. The price is a little high. It's not enthusing me. Thumb opening doesn't work so well here. It seems very heavy for what you're getting. The ergos on it aren't great. I don't know if I said that. I might have skipped that, but the ergos on it aren't great. You get hot spots and whatnot off the clip. It is very wide in the pocket. It's a high-speed, low-drag queen. The Curtis clip is maybe a little bit much, and they screwed up the sharpening choil. Let's talk about the ugly here. Okay, on the ugly side, first, this is a $50 knife, and it's using Teflon washers. That's ugly. Second thing, if you watched the disassembly video, you saw that the liner, that the pivot had actually been kind of peened open a little bit, which meant that the liner couldn't slide off over it. That's not incredible, and it meant that I couldn't really fully disassemble this knife. I was able to do okay with it, and there's not that much complexity, but still, that's kind of just, it's a sign of Boker's approach to quality control, which isn't, well, I don't know that they have an approach to quality control. But there you go. And then finally, the biggest issue for me with this knife is that this knife is very thick behind the edge. If we look at the sharpening choil here, we can see that this is not meant to cut really at all. It's got a nice tall blade, but it's got this very sabery grind down here. If this grind had been extended further up and this was a full flat grind, this might be a nice slicing tool. But as it is, it's like a little hatchet sort of an affair, and I don't know that I'm going to want to chop down a tree with it. So, yeah, that's pretty ugly to me, is that this is just not a very good cutting tool because it is just too damn thick behind the edge. You can cut things with it, but that's just ugly. A knife this small shouldn't be overbuilt in that stupid sense. But that's just my opinion. So, there you go. That's what's ugly, is it's too thick behind the edge to be a good cutting tool. The liners on it did prevent disassembly, and it's using Teflon washers, and you didn't buy it in a gas station. So let's talk final conclusion here. Look, final conclusion, I don't think this is a very good knife. It's not really built to cut effectively, and it doesn't really have much of a purpose either. It's a knife that's not built to cut, which is ugly in and of itself, but then it's this high-speed, low-drag cilantro cutting knife. I just don't know what they're doing here, and at $50, you can buy a hell of a lot of knife for $50, and that's way, way better than this little guy here. So I don't get it. And so my final conclusion is that you probably shouldn't buy this knife. I mean, maybe if you've got some really weird fetish that makes this a great choice, where you're going, oh my God, be still my beating heart, then okay, I guess you can do it. But I just don't see any good reason to buy this, and at this price point, you got much better options. So there you go. Alas, the Nano is a no-no. Hope this has been interesting to you, that your tactical cilantro needs are met otherwise, and that you have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.